Yes, people, we are back. Fresh pod for your head top. What is good? And today we have a great guest. I've been looking forward to this one. We have Chloé Templeman, everybody. Welcome, Chloé, to the What Does Your Mum Think podcast.
Thanks for having me, guys. Really excited for today.
The colour. I was half expecting you to do a dye of the hair pink. It'd be
You know what? I was
easier.
going to wear something pink. I put some pink lips on for you guys, but I thought green would actually be quite nice in contrast to
The
the pink.
lipstick. It's very appreciative.
Everything is for a reason, and I've got my little love heart necklace on. So there's subtle things that I've done just for you guys today.
Someone would think you was a designer.
Someone would think.
Amazing. Right, so we're going to kick things off with stage one, with Chloé being the wee lass from Scotland and understanding that a little bit more. So, Chloé, when you think back to yourself as a kid growing up in Scotland, which part of you was already shining through and what part came with time?
I think, to be fair, I was always quite arty. I was always kind of the arty one. I've got a big sister and a wee brother, and none of them do anything creative or anything arty. And I was always the one who had, I don't know, for Christmas, you'd always get like art sets. I think once someone knows there's something about you, they then just almost like perpetuate it a little bit. So I was always that kid, always drawing, always even things like dancing, singing, doing. I always laugh now. Me and my sister almost used to do like podcast, creative content back in the day on like cassette players, where we'd like press record and record adverts, and we would do radio shows that nobody would listen to apart from us, obviously. But it's things like that. I was always curious about creativity and how to express myself. And then I just think as I got a wee bit older, I didn't really know there was a job being a designer, but I knew that you could, if you were good at something, as I kind of went up through high school, I kind of did a bit of a balance of, I did some like academic stuff, but I always did like art and graph com and like all the sort of creative ones as well. So I kind of always bagged it in the back of my head thinking I'm probably going to do this art thing, but kind of had to balance it a little bit with some of the more, history and English and all that stuff. But definitely, yeah, it was always something that I thought, like, I'm quite good at this. And I just loved it. I just loved even things like decorating my own room. I think when I was about 14, for some reason, my mum and dad let me decorate my own room. And I actually, it's very similar to this aesthetic. I had a pink roof, and then I had a purple halfway, and then I broke up loads of tiles and mirrors and made this border and like learned how to do tiling and stuff.
Nice.
And they just allowed me to kind of express myself. And they must have just been walking in my room thinking, what the fuck is this? But it was just stuff like that they kind of just let me run with it. And yeah, that kind of gave me the confidence to kind of find my own style, no matter how wacky and weird it was.
Oh, that's really cool, Chloé. I think it sounds really cool as well that your parents were sound open to your creativity. Was there a time when you was younger where maybe your creativity was misunderstood?
I think, to be fair, I think my dad's side was quite creative. He was really good at drawing. He used to always draw. And I think I was almost like for him, he kind of encouraged it in me because he'd never really been encouraged. I don't think they encouraged me to do this as a career. I think it was very much just she's quite creative, so it was nice to kind of see me make things or make presents for people. So I think it was almost just it was not necessarily encouraged to the way that, because my family didn't know, if I didn't know what design was, they didn't really know either. So I think it was just very much one of those things that kind of, I wouldn't even say I had a style. I would just draw shit, like just drawing things or clay or like quite good with my hands. And then just got into really like ideas or little things that I would try and kind of get down on paper that would be, I think I told a story before. I got interviewed for a magazine, and they were saying about the first time that you knew that there was a thing called design. And I did a logo design when I must have been about 8 years old, because I remember thinking, we had this fake company that me and my cousin and my sister used to kind of pretend to run. And I was like, well, we need a logo, we need a sign on the door. So while those guys were playing, the game, I was off trying to design a logo, and then drawing it out, and then made like paper stationery and stuff, put it in the top right corner. And so I think probably at the time being influenced by, this was in the 80s, growing up and watching movies where there probably was a bit, corporate America and women in power with power suits and stuff. So that was probably the kind of the movies that we were watching at the time. And that was maybe subconsciously something that was like, oh, those women look badass and we should work in a big office. And then I was sitting there going, oh, I want to do the logo. So yeah, there was always stuff like that going on. But yeah, I think it was encouraged, but not to the point where they were like, you could go and do something one day with this. Because I just don't think anybody, not necessarily took it seriously, but I think it was just something that we all did for fun rather than anything, career wise.
Yeah, that's sick. I love that. So it's always kind of been there, and the thread's been there from an early age. I know that you've had a bit of a unconventional route to university, so to say. So
Yeah.
What was that like, and how did failing twice shape you?
I actually, at the time, it was really hard, but I actually love the fact that I failed twice. I think the sort of the route in was, again, like I said, I just kind of organically did art and graph com and did the arty kind of subjects, and we just put a portfolio together as you do, but it was mostly just drawing. It wasn't necessarily super thought out from high school. And then when I applied to the best uni going, which was Duncan and Johnson, and just assumed that I would probably just get in. Absolute naive. And so I didn't get in, and I didn't really know what to do. So my sister at the time, she was doing a teaching course in Dundee. So I thought, oh, I'll just go to Dundee anyway, because Duncan and Johnson was in Dundee. So I thought if I go to Dundee, I can maybe do like a portfolio course and almost kind of find what I'm great at. I just didn't want to give up the kind of hope that I was going to go to art college one day. So I found Graham Street, which is an amazing kind of feeder college to Duncan and Johnson, and it works a wee bit different in Scotland. And that was almost like a foundation course. So you did like a bit of everything. And I absolutely loved it. And it was a feeder course. So most people got into uni from the course. The great thing about Scotland was at the time, I think it is still now, that university is free and college is free. So you need to be good enough, not rich enough. So the places were really, really scarce. I think they only take about, let's say, 120 students into first year. And then for each of the disciplines, they take 20 students. So it's not like, I think I've heard today, there's hundreds of people on certain courses, but it was because it was so small, and not everybody automatically goes to uni. Like I was we were the first generation in my family who went to uni. It wasn't necessarily even encouraged. It was just like, oh, I want to do art. Well, you got to go and get a portfolio together. So when I then applied, I was actually a bit more confident. And then when I got the letter saying that I hadn't got in again, I was so upset and I was so broken because all of my pals got in. And I remember just thinking, oh, fuck, like maybe I'm not good enough. And like maybe I'm just quite good at drawing and maybe I shouldn't be doing this as a career. And it wasn't until I went to the sort of the end of year show thing at the college that I was at that by that point I'd kind of had some advice saying, look, don't do a foundation year. You need to specialise in something and then you can skip a year. And got some really good advice from the college kind of saying you could do this, roundabout way of getting in if you specialise. And they had encouraged me to do fashion because at the time I was quite a funky dresser, and that was like, it was early 2000s. So there's lots of hats and accessories, just diamantes and shit. And they kind of looked at me and thought, oh, you girls tend to do fashion, boys tend to do graphics, so you should do fashion. And I just kind of followed along. And it wasn't until I went to the end of year show and kind of walked in, and it was CD covers. This shows you how old I am. CD covers and like book covers and magazine art and illustration. And I was just like, what's that? Like, I don't want to be doing fashion. What's that? I want to be doing that. And then the course leader said, oh, that's graphics. That's graphic design. And then the sort of thing in my head of, oh, well, girls don't really do graphics, just then spurred me on even more to be like, oh, don't tell me I can't do something. Like if that ever happens to me, I end up doing it like
Go.
20 times over. So I applied to do graphics and learned Photoshop, learned all the programs, absolutely just loved it. And then I sort of applied to jump a year. And even then, the sort of the entry was even smaller. There was only 3 people in Scotland who could get in, jumping in into this directly into the course, and I happened to be one of the 3. So it was a complete, like, I don't know, it wasn't A to B. It was like, all of this and back and front, and maybe doing fashion and then finding your way into something else, and like good advice from people, but also some, like, not necessarily bad advice, but advice that kind of spurred me on by saying that I shouldn't be doing something. I was like, but that's what I want to do. I just didn't know what it was called. So by the time I ended up getting into uni, it was me and 2 guys actually who had all jumped a year. So we had a little bit more experience than everybody. So by that point, I was like, I just wasn't fucking about. I was like the SWAT. We were there all the time, like ideas, the little Mac labs that they had, I just didn't want to mess up, but I also had a massive thing to prove to myself, like my sort of self-doubt, but also to everybody else, because like, how dare you not let me in? And when I did get in, I was like, right, I'm gonna show everybody. And I'm almost, again, to the point of somebody sort of holds something up and says you can't, it's going to be harder for you to jump over. It kind of fuels me. I just threw myself into graphics. And I think if I had just got in from high school, or if I'd, maybe if I'd got in from college to begin with, it would have been different. But I don't know if I would have found graphics. So like everything did kind of fall into place and everything kind of happened for a reason. But if it wasn't for the path that I was on, there's certain things that wouldn't have unfolded, and then I wouldn't have ended up, I don't think, being interviewed for a placement in London. So there's like so many things that had to go wrong for me to then come over, to overcome, to then be at the point where I was like, come on, let's go.
Oh, Chloe, that's amazing. Just to that journey that you mentioned about then, the back and forth of you getting denied going to university, was that the sort of first real challenge that you felt that brought something out of you, where it was like, I'm going to push through this, and you've carried that through your life going forward? Or was there a moment before that time at university where you had that sort of grit and determination in your character?
You know what? I think I always had it. I was one of those kids who, I always sort of say, because I'm a middle child, I had a big sister, a little brother, I didn't really want to be treated, like, I didn't see why we should be treated differently. And I do think sometimes my brother would get to go to football with my dad and I wouldn't. And I just didn't understand why it would be different. And I remember being at primary school, and the boys used to get to play football, and we didn't. And I remember going to so I must have been about 11 at the time. And I remember going up to the teachers and just saying, well, that's not fair. Like, we want to play football. And this is, I mean, obviously Lionesses do an amazing thing for women's football at the minute, but this must have been, I don't know, early 90s. And I just didn't understand why we weren't allowed to play football, but they were. So then I ended up petitioning to the football coach. And then he started a girls' football team, and then all of us started playing football. Nice. And then again, I remember, it's like things like that. And then I remember being in my primary 7, so I think I must have been about 12. And they had like a paper that we did, like it was called the Park Hill Press. It was like a newspaper we did. And I remember I got the job of artist, obviously. So I did a little comic book. I'd designed this comic book called Garlic Man. And, he was this character who used to go about. But I remember thinking at the time, well, I don't really just want to be pigeonholed into being an artist. Like, I want to be sports editor. Not even just a sports journalist. I was like, fuck this, I'm going for the editor role. And I remember as well, I remember the conversation with the teacher and them saying, oh, well, you really need to know about sports to write about it, you need to be able to like sort of direct the other journalists. And I just remember thinking, how dare you think that I couldn't do this? And so he like sort of challenged me. I had to go and read about some football, I had to read about some boxing, and I had to read about some other stuff. And I had to do some articles on it, and I ended up getting the role. And I think I was like the first ever female sports editor of the Park Hill Press in 1993 or whatever it was. And I just remember thinking, again, it's just that thing in my head where I was like, don't you tell me I can't do something, because I'm going to show you that I can. And I went away and I read about the boxing and I learnt about it, and then I had to boss all the other boys about, because all the other boys wanted to be journalists. And I suppose that was probably the little creative director in me when I was, about 12 years old, was still the one who wanted to kind of prove to everybody that I just don't really like injustice. And I feel like I've always been, the class rep or the mouthy one speaking up, and not just sitting back and letting people walk all over us, and just being a bit more like fiery, which I suppose is the characteristic that I probably always had, and I think I still do have now, which I don't think you could be taught that. I feel like when you're that young, I was decided to be a vegetarian when I was 4. So things like that, I've always been a bit, I knew my own mind, and I knew what I wanted, and I wasn't afraid to kind of go up against people for it, in the best way, just because I wanted to kind of prove that I could, rather than tell me that I couldn't.
Oh, Chloé, I love it. That's it. And it does make sense to like going through your career, and especially with where you're at now, you know what I mean? You feel like you've had that seed from a very young age, and you've just been nurturing it and watering it throughout. And like, I think knowing yourself that well from such a young age, in a sense, you know what I mean? Like I still, I'm very much still all the time feel like I'm figuring myself out and like reinventing myself, and Sheps 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, So you mentioned then about you won a bursary, right? For a placement in London.
Yeah. So when I was at uni, between your last year, just before your last year in the summer, we got encouraged to get loads of placements. So again, being the total overperformer little swot that I was like, right.
Isn't it sick? We were the same, like we were the same. Like, they're the ones who win.
Yeah, because I was like, I don't know what kind of company I want to work for. Like, do I want to work for a small, a medium, a large company? Like, I didn't know, like, where I'm from in Fife isn't Dundee. So I was thinking, where am I going to go after this? What kind of job do I want? Like, it was kind of a bit of an open, like the world was my oyster sort of thing. I didn't really know where I was going to go. So I wanted to just try loads. So I got a placement. I got a few placements in Edinburgh, really, really small ones where there was only about 4 people. And I get really awkward with silence, or when people are like not talking.
Oh, Chloé, listen, you're telling me it kills me over here. When Americans, sorry to cut in, but like Americans in meetings are very different. You'll know this, like when you come into a call in New York, right? And it's so silent. And
I just fill the silence as well. So then I was just filling the silence, trying to get the buzz going. So I realised pretty quickly small agencies weren't for me. So I did a few medium sort of agencies, and then I was really lucky. And again, this is what I say about if I hadn't have failed to get in, I wouldn't have been in the position that I was when the sort of the brand union at the time had came up to Scotland to kind of interview a few of the people to kind of offer us a placement. And the lovely sort of thing about it, and I don't think I really realised how important it was, maybe even till a couple of years after I got down, because the sort of the story goes, John Mathers, who's a Scotsman, and Glenn Tutstall, who's a Welshman, they were sort of CEO and Chief Creative Officer of Brand Union at the time. And I think they kind of looked about at their studio and just thought, God, they're two proud, countrymen from Wales and Scotland, yet there's not enough sort of talent outside of Londoners who are in the studio. So they kind of put a bit of a mission together to come to Wales and Scotland, and I think they went to Ireland as well, and basically just give lots of students an opportunity to kind of come down and work at the Brand Union. So they came. I remember John Mathers. He came up and he interviewed. I think it was about 5 of us that got chosen for the interview, and I was one of them. And I remember we just totally hit it off. And he found out I was from Fife, and he had some family connections in Fife. And he looked at my book, and I remember him saying to me, "Did you do that?" And I was like, "Yeah." And it was a project it was D&AD project I was working on for Puma. And he was like, "Where did you get that idea?" And I went, "Well, I thought of it." Like, I thought of the idea. And he was like, "That's such a good idea." And I remember leaving thinking, "Oh, I really hope I get that." My sort of competitive side was there. And then I got a phone call from the Brand Union saying that I'd won one of the placements, which was a paid placement, which was really rare back then. But also it was like a £500 bursary sort of bonus to allow, because they knew that obviously people from Scotland and Wales and Ireland, you'd have to travel, you'd have to stay, to have accommodation. Like I couldn't have afforded that back then. So even just the fact that there was that money there to get the train down, to then I stayed in the worst shitty student accommodation ever in King's Cross, which was really rough back then as well. Because I didn't know how to use the tubes. So I wanted to get somewhere that I could walk, because I didn't know how to work the tubes. Obviously never been on a tube before. So I wanted somewhere that I could walk to. And it also ended up being really great because it was such a shithole. I ended up not wanting to go home at the end of the night. So I just looked.
Stay out.
I just looked like the biggest kilo ever, because everybody was working late. And again, back then it was 5 days a week in the studio, and you would work, you would just keep working, and then you would get your tea. They would always, like, if you worked late, you'd get your tea. And so I was like, "Oh, this is great. I'm getting fed. I don't need to go home," but which the home was a shithole anyway. So I didn't really want to go back. And it was really big and buzzy. I didn't really understand it at the time because I didn't know what WPP was, but it was a WPP agency, global agency, that I just happened to kind of land in. And it was great because when we were there, I knew John, and I knew Glenn. And when the CEO comes down and says hi to you and has a big conversation, and you feel comfortable enough to have a chat, like, it does make such a difference. And then you kind of gave me the confidence. And they set a competition for us when we were there. All the students, I think there was like 12 of us from around the country, came down, and it was the Design Week 20-year anniversary, and I ended up winning it. I came first and third because I put a few entries in. Classic over deliver.
Of course you did. I love it.
Of course. And then so I put a few in, and then I won it, which meant they then offered me another placement. And then when I was down, they ended up then, I don't know, I just think I got on well with everybody. I think I was just really excited to be there, super enthusiastic, really, really curious. Didn't really want to go home, wanted to like make the most of my time there. So I ended up, when I came back to London, I had to obviously go and do my final year at uni, and I got a letter through the post offering me a junior position. So before I'd even finished uni, to go from the little, the wee lassie who couldn't even get a place at uni to leaving uni with a job in London was just like the biggest sort of turnaround and the biggest confidence boost, and probably one of the biggest things and life-changing things that ever happened to me. So yeah, I was really lucky, but I also worked really hard for it. And I do think, through the years, I've always diminished it, and I've always sort of said, "Oh yeah, it was just the right place at the right time." And people around me in my bubble have always sort of said, "Stop putting yourself down and actually own it." And so that's why I'm not being a cocky bitch. I actually did work really hard for that. And when I did sort of go back to uni, and I don't think I actually told a lot of people that I'd got a job, because I didn't want everybody to kind of be looking at me differently, or like to kind of think that I wasn't trying, or to think that there was things like, you had to queue to get things printed. There was a lot of things that I didn't want to just give up. I still wanted to get a degree, so I didn't give up. So I didn't actually tell a lot of people in the course, because I didn't want people to kind of think that I wasn't trying anymore. So it was actually really nice to be able to tell them after the degree show that I'd actually had a job, despite obviously still working my arse off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's so good to hear, Chloe. Me and Christian can resonate with this journey very closely. We've done the migration. Obviously, you've gone a lot more higher up than us, but we've done the migration from the north down to London for placements and gone back, done the final year and landed our jobs in London. And yeah, I mean, it's a whole different world from like the little towns in North England that we grew up in, as I can imagine it was for you as well, coming from Scotland. So going forwards now, Chloe, we'd like to jump into stage 2, which is becoming. Obviously, you've just touched on Brand Union there, but you've also been at Design Bridge, which we'll get into that a little bit. You did a really long stint there, Big Fish. Obviously, you landed now at Pearlfisher. So in your mind, what's been the thread and the connection between working at all these different agencies?
I think the thread for me is staying somewhere long enough that you kind of absorb everything you need to from it. And it's always like, I always kind of see my career as a, I don't know, as a long sort of long game, let's say. So I always stayed places as long as I was still growing and still learning and still being challenged. So I stayed at Brand Union for about 3 years, which at the time was quite long. I think people tend to, from junior to middleweight, they would maybe stay a year or two. 3 years was almost kind of getting to the point where if you didn't jump, you were almost kind of like a middleweight. You'd be a middleweight for years and years and years because they'd saw you as a bit of a baby junior. And I think, Brand Union was great. And I think I had such a massive exposure to amazing projects, amazing big brands. As a junior, I probably had a smaller impact on them, because obviously you've got all the massive, amazing creatives around you. I was really lucky. I got to do quite a lot of traveling. They sent me to Peru within 6 months. So I was 6 months out of uni. Like you were saying before, like wee lassie for Scotland from a tiny place in Fife, lands herself in London, which is always, also a bit like mad. Then 6 months later, they're flying me to Peru to work in the Miami office, to then go to Peru to like do research. And it was a beer for women that the sort of the brew house was bringing out. I can't even remember what house it was. It wasn't Diageo. I can't remember who it was, but I was one of the only girls on the team, so they didn't want to send a guy because they were like, well, this is a beer for women. You need to go and see the culture of Peru, and I think there'll be sort of little gems that you can find. So yeah, I got to do that, and they were really good, and they put me in situations where I was presenting to like Reckitt Benckiser, the global redesign of Veet, and I was like a year out of uni, and I think I was really, really pushed early on. And then after 3 years, I'd kind of got to a point where, not that I thought I'd learn everything, because there's always more to learn, but I just got to a point where I kind of thought, oh, if I stay here, I'm going to probably just be seen always as the wee lass of Scotland who's kind of been 3 years in, and I might be a middleweight for a long time. And Design Bridge was quite similar in the way that they had big brands. At the time, it was a lot smaller, so there was probably only about 50, 60 people at Design Bridge when I joined. And I think there was a lot of similarities. One of the similarities was it was literally around the corner. So again, someone who didn't really know a lot of London, I'd kind of like Farringdon was my safe space. So I'd done 3 years at the Brand Union, and then I'd got approached actually by a creative director who had heard that they should interview me through the sort of grapevine. And I just thought to myself, I don't know, I just thought they gave me like a good vibe. And I originally wasn't going to go for the interview. And one of my friends gave me some great advice, which is just always go. Even if you don't want the job, always go, always meet people. She was like, you don't know a lot of people in the industry. You need to make sure that you get your name out there and people kind of see your work. So I ended up interviewing at Design Bridge, and I think I got like 3 interviews. And when I finally got the job, I stayed there, the same thing, like I stayed there as long as I felt like I was growing. And the great thing about Design Bridge was I was able to go from a middleweight to a creative director in, oh God, it was probably about maybe like 8, 9 years. So it was fast, but I think at Design Bridge it was very much like if you're good enough, you're old enough. And they always put me on projects where I could really bring something. I could always, I don't know, it was kind of my skill set, but also outside my comfort zone as well. So I think there was a lot of similarities with the brand union where they had sort of put me in situations that I maybe shouldn't really technically have been in because I was a bit younger. And I think the great thing about Design Bridge was literally being able to make mistakes, spread your wings, and really kind of go for it. Nobody really held you back. If you wanted to work on something, you could kind of jump on it and do it. And I think there was lots of amazing people at the time around me that I could just the sort of the similar thing where I just wanted to soak up everything from everybody, and I was able to do that in a way that yeah, it was just fun, and I was learning so much, and just being that sponge. It was big enough that I had lots of different creative directors, and could kind of move about from more pack stuff to more brand world. They started a brand world team, and I ended up on that team. And then I did a lot of stuff where, like the Fortnum stuff, where it was more premium. I hadn't really sort of done premium stuff before. So you can kind of jump about. And that's what I've always loved about my career, just being sort of pushed, but also supported. And I think that's one of the things that I've always sort of thought it is a long game. And each time you go somewhere, it's about, sort of collecting skills and collecting things that ultimately one day when you get to the top, you've got your sort of arsenal is just full of all these things, good and bad, that you can kind of choose from, and the way that you want to lead, and the way that you want to design, and the way you want to approach projects. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I suppose the similarity for me was always about the journey. It was never just about the individual places. I always had somewhere to go. Not that I knew where that place was, but there was always somewhere for me to go.
So just going back to Brand Union, as a junior to middleweight, it's always a funny place. You know what I mean? Again, I remember when I was at Turner Duckworth, and you always have that kind of, regardless, I worked my way up to senior there, and I always felt like a junior. Do you know what I mean? You're always in that little junior. Everyone sees you as this little, junior and whatever, kind of coming out fresh out of uni. What adversities did you face in that first role at Brand Union, if any?
I think there was probably a few. I think as much as today the landscape for women joining the industry, women from working class backgrounds joining the industry is very different to when I joined the industry. It was probably about 2007, and I think like coming down from Scotland, like I spoke different to everybody. Like I still do, but I think it's like softened a little bit. I spoke different to everybody. I was one of the only sort of young girls around there. Back in the day, there was a lot of banter. There was a lot of banter. There was a lot of lads. That was the lads and the ladettes era back in the early 2000s. So there was a lot of sort of casual sexism that was kind of dressed up as banter. And I'm one of the, obviously Scottish, we've got loads of banter, we're loads of fun. So like you could totally take it. And there wasn't anything, massively kind of disturbing, but it was a little bit tedious sometimes. I think you're getting your accent mocked, getting the way that you say things, people taking the piss out of you, being a girl, having like the weird sort of comments and stuff were always kind of there. And I think, to be fair, that was probably still, I mean, it maybe still goes on in the industry now and I just don't hear it. But certainly throughout my career, there has been moments where I, now looking back, just think, God, I wish I'd spoke up. I wish I'd said something. Again, when you're a bit more of a junior or even a middleweight, you tend to kind of, I don't know, I suppose there was part of me that wanted to blend in a little bit. Like, this is before I had red hair, so I had brown hair. I stopped dressing as jazzy. I almost didn't really, I probably did change my accent a bit more. Like I was trying to be a bit politer. I wouldn't say certain words because I knew that I'd get the piss taken out of me, or, you wouldn't wear certain things. You just had so much more to think about rather than just going in and doing your job. I think, yeah, like I say, that it wasn't just one agency. It was the industry at the time. I think, like I say, it's better now. I think people call out sort of microaggressions a lot more. There's a lot more comfortable space to be able to do that, whether that be about, I don't know, someone's gender or their race or their background. It is a lot better now. But I think growing up through that, you've got to have a bit of a tough skin. And I do think I got to a stage at Design Bridge where I just felt like I was almost just a bit. I'd spent my whole time in London just trying to blend in and not stand out, because if you stand out, you're like a target for someone to take the piss out of you, or someone to kind of, I don't know, it gives people ammo. And then I remember just one day just feeling so comfortable that I was like, you know what? I've never wanted to fit in. Like, I'm the kid who was always wanted to be different. I would always dress, the way that I wanted to. And I think I just got to a point, I was probably about a senior at that point. And I remember like getting lots of coping mechanisms. So there's this, I don't know if it's an animalistic thing, and I think there's probably like psychologically someone would could have a field day with this, but I used to go into presentations when I was about a senior level, and I used to wear the biggest high heels, like not like stilettos, but like wedgies. And there was something, because I'm quite tall, I'm about 5'10". So when I had these wedgies on that were, I'm not even joking you, about this big at the front and this big at the back, I was probably about 6'2". And I would be walking in, and that was what gave me the confidence to kind of walk in a room. We would always have boards. We would always present on boards. So you would always be standing up. The client would always be sat down. And there was something really, that was what I needed to do to feel like I could own the room back then. I was usually like the clients were usually men. A lot of the designers, creative director and design directors were all guys, and I was usually the only girl in the room apart from client service. And I remember one time, it was at Design Bridge actually. One of the clients asked me for a coffee, and I was getting the boards ready. I was working on Guinness at the time, and we were getting ready to present some of the Guinness work. And the client just casually went, "Oh, could you get me a coffee?" I went, yeah. And I went out. I don't drink coffee. So I went out to the coffee machine, and I was like, shit, I don't know how to make coffee. Like, what pod color do you do? Like, I don't even know. And I was like, I hadn't even set up the room. I was about to present the work. I was all flustered. And I just turned around, said to the first person who walked past, how do you make a coffee? And it happened to be the MD of Design Bridge, who was a woman. She's Hannah. And she went, what are you making the coffee for? And I said, oh, the client wants a coffee. She went, it's not your job to make the coffee, Chloe. Never make the coffee. Get back in there, get yourself prepared for your presentation, and smash your presentation. I'll speak to reception, who will make coffee and tea and for everybody, not just that one person. And it was such like a life lesson of, yeah, like, why am I making the fucking coffee? And also, why did I just do it and politely just do it, or the one that has to take the notes, or the one that falls into the female sort of traditional female role? I was like, it wasn't until, I always think back as well, if it wasn't the MD and it was somebody else, what would they have said? And would they have just went, oh, you press this button and you do this, and you know, blah, 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 blah. But I went back in and obviously then presented the work with my massive heels on. And it went really well, and it went really great. And then afterwards, I went up and said, "Oh, you know what? That is like a lesson that I'm going to take with me forever now." And I shouldn't be the one I've done all this work, and they would never have turned around to, I don't know, the design director or the creative director, who were guys, and asked them to make the coffee. So why am I doing it? Yeah. So I think there's loads of stuff like that throughout, you know, my career that you could have just, you know, I could have just maybe fallen in line. And I think the confidence that I needed at the time to own the room, or think I was owning the room, was my height, because I was so big. And then I dyed my hair red. Yeah. And then I was like, I felt like I'd gone from this, like I was trying to like be a bit smaller and fit in, and not necessarily, I had brown hair and I wouldn't really dress kind of anything to like make me stand out. And then all of a sudden, I think I got to sort of senior. I think when people don't take you seriously, I was just like, you know what? dye my hair red. I'm going to wear exactly what I want. So, you know, gold cowboy boots and flamboyant things. I used to wear, you know, scarves in my hair, and I just was back to expressing myself and being exactly who I wanted to be. And then that gave me the confidence. So then, I mean, eventually now I never wear high heels anymore. And again, that was very much of its time, you know, the 2010 when everybody wore high heels. But there's loads of things like that where you just think, God, you know, that turning point, and then being actually allowed to, or allow myself to just dress and look the way I wanted, instead of thinking I don't really want to, I don't want to stand out, I just want to fit in, I want to be like everybody else so that nobody thinks I'm different, to then going, well, why is different a bad thing? Like, the way that I do things is different, and I'm going to celebrate that. And I think that's what probably gave me a bit of confidence to then get to DD level, to then start to do, you know, at the time, I think I was working on a lot of Fortnum stuff, running that. And then, you know, then when you get a little bit of, kind of, you get noticed in the industry, you then, I don't know, you've got a bit of a brand, or you kind of look a certain way. So people kind of tended to remember me, or remember the work that I'd done. And I think for a long time, like I say, I did probably try and just blend in. And I think it was that switch where I was like, I just want to be myself, actually. And I want to, it doesn't matter if I stand out or blend in. We're a design agency, and you could express yourself however you want. And that was a massive turning point for me, to just kind of own it a bit.
Chloe, that's powerful. Love that. Do you know what I mean? 100%. I think it's so, you know, dare to be liked, but dare to be disliked by being authentically you. I pride myself on that, Chloe, my whole life. Do you know what I mean? Honestly, like, you know, you come out of school, innit? School is filled with, like, we spoke about this on a podcast before, like, insecure, you know, kids just trying to figure themselves out. One person gets pair of trainers, everyone gets that same pair of trainers, everyone gets that jacket. Remember, like, bench coats and, you know, whatever else it was, you know, in Fraser, where everyone just, and I think it is really beautiful, especially in this industry where, you know, I think you should shine out. I say this all the time as well. Like, Brian Collins always says about being in rooms filled with misfits, and like beautiful things happen, you know, in them kind of places. And I think, you know, expressing yourself authentically and purely every day, man. What else have you got? Like, why would you hide behind anything else? Like,
I think there was a huge thing of, again, back in the day, it was like, I don't really want to do anything that's going to make people go, that's a bit weird. Like, let's take the piss out of her for this, or let's do that, or it's like a thing that makes you get noticed. Whereas I was always the kid that I just really didn't care. I almost wanted to be different. Like, because I had a big sister, people would always call us the girls, and I would be like, we are not the girls, we are Christy and Chloe, we are two people. And really what we kind of, you know, we're very different. We're so alike, but also so different. So I was always like the one that just wanted to be unique and wanted to be different. And then I think I went through the first couple of years of my career actually not wanting to stand out, and just wanting to just keep my head down, do some work. And then I think when people started, you almost just I got overlooked a little bit in some of those meetings. And then I was like, my work that you're talking about. And other people would be talking about the work that I'd kind of been working on as a senior. And then I think that gained that drive, or, you know, some of the things that people had sort of said to me. I remember someone once said to me, one of my bosses, actually, one of my directors, I'd said something like, I think the Pen Awards annual had just came out, and we'd had something in there. I didn't work on it, but they had something in the book, and I went, oh my God, that's so cool, that's so amazing, and I'd love to have something in the Pen Awards annual one day. And they sort of turned around and said something like, oh, you're going to have to do work that's good enough then. And then everybody laughed, and I just remember just thinking, like, it's that thing again. If you tell me that I can't do something, like, I'm going to do it like times 100. And like, obviously I have won loads of Pen Awards, and I have been in the book, and not just a judge, but I'm, you know, the co-president. It's like, God, you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to do it times a million, just to kind of prove to myself and prove to you and prove to everybody else that laughed as well. It's like those moments in your sort of young career, as you're kind of coming up through the ranks, that some people thrive on competition and getting beat down and blah, blah, blah. I'm totally not. Like, I would rather be encouraged. I would rather people support you. Obviously be truthful. give you tips, bring you up, listening to podcasts, here's some books, have you heard this, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I learned a lot from even the people that did sort of say things like that. It just made me like so fiery. I was like, right, I'm going to show you. And then, yeah, but it's character building, isn't it? It's the whole thing. It's like I say, everything happens for a reason.
I think it's those early years that you mentioned, Chloe. Like again, your journey just super resonates with me. Me and Christian have always been a little bit like opposites in a way. I've always been a little bit more like reserved, and Christian's always been a bit more out there. But Christian walked into placement just being himself, like walked into studios like TD, Turner Duckworth, just fully himself. And I went as somebody that I wasn't when I was on placement.
Yeah.
And I really regret making that decision. And I think, again, coming from Scotland, coming from these little towns up north, and then moving down to London, it's like you just want to try and fit in and make this the best impression that you can. And you also know that if something goes wrong, then I'm literally living like paycheck to paycheck at the start, that if this doesn't work out, then I'm going to have to go back up north. Like everything's going to go wrong. Yeah. So I felt like I struggled to just be true to myself sometimes. But then it actually does a lot of damage. It does probably more damage than good, because you sort of lose that personality, that character that makes you special and unique. It's something that I've learned a lot through my journey. It sounds like you have as well. And now you have a brand which is just you. It's just you being you. And it's probably the thing that you probably have to put not so much at least effort into, because you're just showing up as yourself every day, and people know you for being you. And I think if I could listen to that you just spoke about on this podcast like 10 years ago when I was coming into the industry, I think it would have done me a world of good. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Really hits a soft spot with me there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's so true. And I do think, like you say, there was no plan B. Like, I was very lucky to be able to be down in London on a bursary, and I asked as well for a relocation fee. So they sort of paid for my train down, and for me to obviously to be there. I didn't have savings. Like if I lost one of those jobs, I wouldn't even have known how to get another one. So I do think, I totally, I've done a few talks as well over the years. I think I did one at New Blood. And I remember, and I always tell that story about, again, being the failure, which is absolutely fine. But that move from the tiny wee place in Fife down to London, and what that meant, leaving my whole family, which I'd already kind of left them when I went to uni, but this was like, Scotland's a different country to England. Like, I know that we are Great Britain, but it is so different. It's unbelievable. And probably the same for you guys. Like the North is a complete, just everything is just different. So I remember doing a talk, and at the end, someone came up to me and said exactly what you said, and said, like, nobody's talking about this. Like, nobody talks about how scary it is to move from, not London to London. And I do think it's really important. Again, representation really matters, but also people that are authentically themselves and like not trying to be anything. And I don't have like a super story that like my dad or my mum's cousin's brother owned an agency. It's like, nah. Like, I worked my way down here through chance and opportunity, and also being given a leg up from people in the industry who gave a shit enough to go, wait a minute, this was 2005, and the Scotsman and the Welshman decided that they wanted to change things. So I think that from the beginning, I always kind of carried that, and I will carry that throughout my whole kind of career. And if I can talk about it, and if it helps, like you say, if it helps or resonates with anybody and just allows them to skip maybe the thing that I did, which was not really believe in yourself, or not really kind of be yourself, or try and kind of fit into the point where you don't necessarily trust your own voice, that is like the worst thing to do. And I think I always say this to people that I'm sort of mentoring, and it's like, being uniquely you is the only thing that you can do, and that's what people want to see. And nowadays that is so much celebrated, and I think it should be celebrated more, because I think you were saying earlier, Sheps, it's the diversity in the room, and the way that different people think, and the way that different people approach things. It's, I don't know, it just makes every day more interesting. It makes the ideas better, and it makes it more fun as well.
100%. Listen, I always see it as like, if someone's got a problem, for lack of a better word, a problem with the way you are, then it's a them problem, innit? Do you know what I mean? And by being yourself, I think that helps you believe in yourself. Do you know what I'm saying? More, and gives you the confidence to really kind of like rep yourself through your, most authentic self. It's great, Chloe. It's really, like Michael said, that we both really resonate with that.
Yeah.
Either end of the spectrum.
I remember being on the first call with you, Sheps, and we were doing something.
Let's go. Give them that sauce, Chloe. Tell them what's good.
I remember being on the first, and it was in New York. I can't even remember what we were doing. I think it was one of the identity things. And then there was your voice, and then there was someone else's, and there was a few different voices. And I hadn't, again, I think at the end, or just before I started speaking, I think I'd said, oh, it's so nice to hear so many different accents on the call, and I'd sort of think I'd praised there was like 4 or 5 different accents on the call, and I remember you just being like, yeah, like getting excited about it. And I was like, because obviously my accent's different, and there was obviously American, I think there was obviously you, there was a few different, and I think that even just to create that, obviously I just did it naturally, but to create that safe space where we can all just talk, we're all obviously from different places, but then we could then just kind of be a bit more ourselves. And I do think it is important to, I don't know, I think I am quite an open book. I wear my heart on my sleeve. So if I'm thinking something, it tends to come out. And I just remember being like, oh, it's so nice to hear such a variety of accents on a call. And I know this work is going to be great. And then your little faces, all of you just lit up. So yeah, that was the first time I met you, Sheps.
Yeah, 100%. And even hearing you on that call, I said to Michael before, that was I think it was the identity stuff weren't it, for Pearlfisher. And yeah, just again, everything you're saying now, I already got that kind of impression. I'm trying to not take over the pod too much, but everything you're saying, it's so aligned, Chloe. It's crazy. You know what I mean? Yeah. I really do hope we get to work more together as we kind of keep diving deep. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. We're going to get into that in a second. Right, before we do that though, obviously 12 years is a big stint at Design Bridge. In a nutshell, why did you stay for 12 years and what made you leave after 12 years?
I think it goes back to what I was saying at the beginning. Like, as long as I'm being challenged and as long as every day is different and you're doing different things. And I was super lucky at Design Bridge. I think at the time, like I say, there was only about 50 people, and then it started getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But I got to go to Singapore. They used to do transfers. So I got to go to Singapore for like 6 weeks to work. I swapped with someone. I went to Amsterdam and worked there for a couple of, I think it was like a month. And then I got to do loads of stuff with New York as they opened the New York studio. And I was design director at the time. And I used to do loads of the innovation stuff for Smirnoff and Diageo. And so it was just so much fun. And like to be able to go back and forward to New York. And it just felt like I'd always had opportunities. They'd always put me in the right rooms with people. I was able to, I think a lot of the stuff that I'd done, I kind of carved a bit of a reputation of being almost like the limited edition or the innovation one. Like I did loads of limited edition stuff. And I think when I got to creative director, I wasn't really, I was kind of wanting it, but not really expecting it. And then I got to creative director, I think when I was 33, 34. And I remember just being like, oh God, like this is, I'd always wanted to be a creative director. I'd always wanted to have my own team. I'd always wanted to kind of be in, almost like to be in charge. And I feel like when I got there, I had massive imposter syndrome for about 6 to 8 months. And in some ways that was good because again, it kind of fueled me on. It wasn't boring. I wasn't like, oh, I'm a creative director now, I can do everything and I can leave Design Bridge and be whoever. I was like, shit, I've got to actually prove myself. And I'd got promoted at the same time as 2 other guys. And I remember just thinking I'm so different from them. Like one of them was really strategic and one of them was really good at brand world and spirits and drinks. And like, I'm kind of good at a lot of things. I'm better at some stuff than them, but I don't know if that stuff is valued as a creative director. And I think I remember the first time I actually won my first pitch as a creative director. And it was then a turning point because I just thought, oh shit, like the client actually said at the time, I want to work with Chloé. I think she's great. She gets the brand and I'm only going to give this work to Design Bridge if I work with Chloé. So that was the massive boost that I needed. And then from then on, to the same point before, like being authentically me it kind of worked again, and I was like, oh, okay, great. And so I was creative director for about 5-6 years. And I was getting to that point. It was after lockdown. So lockdown happened. We all, obviously, again, that was another massive challenge. You had to learn how to work from home. You had to learn how to lead a team. I'd never really led a team in lockdown. And I feel like I got to about 39, and I don't know if this is like a thing that everybody does. You almost have a bit of a, right, what am I doing before I turn 40, what am I doing for the next 10 years of my life? I'd been at Design Bridge for about 11 and a half years by that point. And I just thought to myself, I could stay here for another 10 easily. But do I want to be 49 and in the same sort of position? By that point, I probably would have still been creative director. I'd been creative director for 6 years, not, ECD. My boss was ECD. She was a brilliant ECD. She wasn't going anywhere. Like, there's no way I would even be able to do her job in my eyes. So I just thought, I'm still going to be here, probably doing a lot of the same work. Mm. And it kind of scared the shit out of me. And I just thought, I'm always been the one who's like wanting to climb and wanting to be challenged. And I just felt like my next 5-10 years of my life were probably I knew they would be in my comfort zone, and I knew kind of what was ahead of me. And I think, like, I do love that about, I love the itchiness about me like that. But I mean, it is fucking annoying because your comfort zone is so comfortable and it's so lovely, and outside your comfort zone is, yes, where the growth happens, but it's so uncomfortable. So I think I'd got to the point where I was really comfy and I knew everybody, and everybody kind of knew me, and again, I probably didn't realise how great that was at the time because I'd worked my way up, so I'd done every role. At that point, I was doing a lot of mentoring as well. So I'd been doing shift for ages, for about 8-9 years at that point. I'd actually started Shift Studio, and so I was doing that at my nights. And I just felt like I was probably at the time just searching for more. And then I think when I'd got to 39, I just thought, I'm going to have to be uncomfortable again. The same way as I was when I left Scotland to come down to London, same way I was when I left Brand Union, because I felt like they'd given me this massive opportunity and I'd only stayed 3 years. I just felt like I needed another massive change. And very, very similar to when I left Brand Union. I mean, to be fair, I got my first job through, I don't know, luck, fate, people approaching me. Design Bridge had approached me as well, so that's how I'd made that move. And then, some Big Fish ended up approaching me and made me an offer that I couldn't refuse, and it just felt like that was the next logical step. And if I wanted to be absolutely shit scared, I should leave Design Bridge, see who I am without them, and go and work at a complete opposite. I'd done massive big brands. I'd done the big, a load of Diageo by this point. I'd worked on Smirnoff, Tanqueray 10. I'd done a bit of Guinness. I'd done Unilever. I'd done all the FMCG stuff. I'd done, obviously, Fortnum's. By that point, I'd been on for about probably about 11 years by that point. And I just felt, I'd worked on one project for Callaley, which was a startup, and I just loved it. And I thought I should go and do startups, because if I'm looking at my career as a long story, I don't want to be pigeonholed as to someone who can just take a brand, big famous brand, and do a rebrand, which obviously is fine and it's great, and no shade on anybody who does that. I did that for years. But I almost, again, wanted to look at my arsenal and go, I haven't really done startups, or I haven't really created a brand. Like I've done a lot of big brands, famous brands that you can see, and it's really exciting when you're in the shop and you can go, oh, I did that. But I hadn't really built one. So there's sort of the logic in my head of going to Big Fish was to do something the complete opposite of Design Bridge. There was no point leaving Design Bridge for a JKR, a Pearlfisher, like any of those guys at the time, because I was like, well, it's probably the same sort of work. It's the big brands, amazing big brands. And I just wanted to completely go the opposite and do startups. And yeah, it was a massive decision to leave Design Bridge, actually. But once I'd made it in my head, there was no sort of turning back. I'm not one of those people that you can then convince. So when I ended up telling them that I was leaving, everybody was so shocked. And people, even people in the industry, would be like, I thought you would never leave. And I felt a bit insulted by that. I was like, no, I'll stay as long as I'm kind of growing. I think that it means it's a bit lazy otherwise. Like, agencies need to keep talent. They need to keep it interesting to keep people. Loyalty obviously lasts. It goes a long way, obviously. But I also think for the ambitious ones, there needs to be sort of growth constantly happening. And it was, like you say, it was nothing that Design Bridge done wrong. It was just me thinking I need to be uncomfortable again and I need to scare myself. And so, yeah, I did that. And yeah, it was a roller coaster to leave, but also amazing and really freeing. And it allowed me to kind of wipe the slate a little bit clean and do something completely different.
You know, the age thing that you touched on there, Chloe, is really interesting to be like, oh, I'm here now, and 10 years time I'm going to be this old, and where am I going to be in my career? And my dad asked me a few months ago, he was like, what are you going to do? Like I was like a 5-year-old kid. What are you going to do when you're older? He's like, you're going to be doing design forever.
Grow up.
And I was like, yeah. I was like, yeah, I think I'm just going to do it forever. But I was then thinking, like, well, actually, in design, how many sort of people do you know that are like in the 50s or 60s that are sort of still in the game that aren't agency owners? What do people do? Where do people go?
I think it's funny. It's funny as well, because a lot of people at Design Bridge had been there for 20 years, 25 years, even 30 years. So I did kind of see, that people, you could stay. But yeah, you are right. A lot of people who are sort of older tend to be agency owners. I also think there's a massive problem with ageism in the industry. As I'm getting older, I can see it. I think there's like the stat that I'm going to absolutely butcher, but I think women tend to get sort of written off a little bit earlier than men. Of course they do. It's totally unfair as always. But I feel like women, I think I think it's probably around your sort of early 40s, which is the age I am right now, which is just ridiculous. It's like, I've got so much drive, so much passion, so much ideas still, so much to give. But this is obviously back in the day where, the sort of the difference is obviously clear now. I do see a lot more women in this sort of senior leadership roles. There's definitely not enough. But I do think there is something about whether you're turning, I don't know, 30, 40, 35, 45, there's like, everybody's got an age where they probably just sort of go, shit, what am I doing with my life? And I think the biggest thing that scared me was thinking I could stay here for another 10 years. Then I would have been 20 years at the same place. And for me, it wasn't necessarily about standing still, because I felt like I'd done quite a lot in the 8-9 years that I'd been there. I'd jumped, I'd worked through all the levels. But it was almost a bit like, where do I go now? Like, what do I do? Do I just stay here and not necessarily plateau, but there is only so far you can go with creative director, then what, ECD, maybe chief creative. But all the people in those roles were badass. They were amazing. And I just thought, I need to go away and carve a little bit of my own path. And yeah, while I'm still got this drive in me, I want to go and do something completely different. But yeah, it's, everybody's probably does it at different ages. Some people do it at 25 and then go and start their own agencies. Like, that would be super brave back then.
I'm with you on that though. Like, you kind of absorb as much as you possibly can in it before making them big leaps. You know what I mean? And understanding when you've took as much as you're satiated. I'm satiated here. Let's get another plate. Let's eat off another plate and then go again.
Yeah, and there's also like, I always leave the party while it's still jumping. Like, what I mean?
Yeah.
There is nothing worse than being at an after party of an after party at 3 a.m. When you're like going through the drinks cabinet, getting Di Serono or like Ouzo or something, literally escaping the barrel because everybody just doesn't want to give the party up.
Yeah.
Like, I'm always one for a French exit. Like, go where the parties, just jump in. I left Design Bridge on such a high. They all had like red wigs on. They had T-shirts that said "Hell's yeah" and "Love Chloe," and it was such an amazing send-off. And then a couple of months later, they then merged with the Super Union and made a completely different agency. So I feel like it was great to go out while the party was, while my party of my Design Bridge as I knew it was as was. so yeah, never stay when the after party is all like life advice for work and actually being out. But yeah, I do think it's a hard decision. Like it was, I think it was brave, but I also think like in some ways I look back and just exactly what I just said there. It's like, God, would it have been easier? Would it have not been easier? But then the easy road was never really the one that I took, was it? So I do think those challenges always make you stronger. And I think being at Big Fish, I learned loads. I was out. I learned loads in the best way and in the worst way. And I think I really left Big Fish. I was only there for about 2 years. I think I needed something, that I needed a dream to kind of pull me from the Design Bridge world. And the sort of the dream and the reality didn't really match up. And I think my next brave decision was to actually leave Big Fish without a job to go to. I got to a point where I think I'd probably lost myself a little bit, like maybe, looking back to the middleweight me or the junior middleweight me, where I was like sort of shrinking and didn't really, believe in the authentic me or what I could bring. Probably the same with Big Fish. I think I got squashed in my role a little bit, and I think I left before I got to the point where I completely forgot who I was and what I could bring. Again, one of the best decisions, and I'm super brave. And again, I am proud of myself for being able to know when a place isn't right. I think a lot of people stay places they're not really right for because they feel like they can change it or it will get better. And I do think being able to leave, and I ended up taking 3 months off, which I'd never done since I started working at about 15. And it was amazing to take 3 months off. Went a little bit of traveling, not loads, went to Sri Lanka, got bored again, did some side hustle projects, worked on some really cool side hustle projects with some people just for the fun of it. Then wanted to get bored because I thought I need to not enjoy this not working thing too much because I'll never go back. And then obviously then I met Pearlfisher on the dance floor at the Pent Awards, and we started.
What was that? Who was it? Who did you meet specifically?
It was DJ David Jenkinson.
Oh yeah, nice. Big up David. Yeah.
Yeah, they were there collecting an award, and I that was my first year being co-president. And it's so funny. Like I always joke about back in the day, all the big deals used to go down on the golf course amongst all the men, and actually now the best deals the best things that have ever happened to me are usually when I'm my true authentic self on the dance floor, living it up. Got chatting to DJ. He mentioned that they were looking for someone at Pearlfisher London and would I want to come in? And I was like, well, only if there's a Chloé shaped hole. Like, I'm not joining somewhere that you're going to try and shoehorn me in, and which is obviously what had kind of happened at my previous place. I was like, I just want somebody to if there's a Chloé shaped hole in your business, I'm obviously the only one who can fill that. So this is what I bring. This is what I'm good at. So, and not even take it or leave it, but I was just like, I'd love to, but I don't want to make another sort of, I don't want to join somewhere and it not be right. And then obviously met a few of the partners, met a few people, and then like the cut of the jib, and decided to kind of go for it. So
amazing, right? So from fishing for fish to diving for pearls, yeah, that's what we're on.
Yes, seamless.
Right, so we're both diving deep at Pearlfisher. You're in a big smoke, I'm in a big apple. I think it's a really exciting time for Pearlfisher at the minute. As much as I do that what has been in the past 2 years, of re-establishing ourselves and kind of getting back to our purest form, and I think it's a really exciting time for Pearlfisher. So I want some stuff from your perspective. So right, so if the London studio and the New York studio was people, how would you describe their personalities, and how do they vibe in the same way?
Oh my God, that's so hard. To be fair, I would say the New York, I think Matsuya is an absolute genius of a man. I think he probably embodies creatively, I think, the sort of the best of Pearlfisher New York. He's I think me and Matt work really well together. I think previously Pearlfisher, they'd almost like been pitted against each other. And it was almost London versus New York, which again, I'm so not up for. Like I would me and Matt kind of stepped into the role of ECD around the same time. So if New York was a person, I mean, it would probably be Matt Sia, because that's probably who I've had most contact with. I think his sort of cool calmness in any storm, the way that he kind of brings that stability, but also real honest. Like me and him we have weekly chats on a Friday, and we're really honest and open with each other, and which is great. Even just sometimes, God, that was so hard, or this has happened, or how would you do this? And then London, God, I don't know. Like I want to say there's a lot of energy in London at the minute. I think the biggest thing that's happened in London is obviously we've moved from West, where we've been for 30 years, to East London now. So, which is a big sort of outward shift for the industry, because we've always kind of been known as the boutique kind of West London studio, whereas now we're like in the heart of Shoreditch in the Truman Brewery. Sick. Like really cool studio, like around loads of stuff that's really inspirational, and your mind's just sparked all the time. And from a talent point of view, it's easier to kind of get people to even me. It used to take me an hour and a bit and 3 trains to get all the way west. So I do think London's probably gone through a bit of a bigger transformation this year. We've only been last sort of end of January, we moved east, and it did feel like that was a big kind of move for us. So hopefully there's this sort of outward kind of change that Pearlfisher has seen. But I do think, I mean, I didn't really plan on joining an agency that was about to go through a massive transformation. I think sometimes it's quite hard to come in at a senior level when you haven't worked your way up. I didn't really realise that until I'd left Design Bridge, because every new place you start, like nobody knows you really. They don't know what you've worked on. They don't know your style. They don't know what you're bringing. They don't know that sometimes the way you talk and the way that you swear, you're not being aggressive, you're being assertive, you're not bossy, you're the boss. And there's a lot of kind of misconceptions around, especially a female leader, especially one with a coarse Scottish accent who speaks her mind, is really passionate and overly, kind of energy. So I don't know, I would say who we would be as a person, but I do think there's been a big sort of transformation, which wasn't necessarily my plan joining. I do think there is this idea of reigniting Pearlfisher, and not necessarily forgetting who we are. I don't want to be like, I hate this idea of when you come in as a more senior person, you come in and you change everything. It's like, I don't want to change anything. I want to like just build on all the great things that are there. Like the work is, it is really famous. I mean, I've seen it. I've had it on my mood boards, throughout the years. It's a great agency, great people work there. And it is, for me, about standing on the shoulders of the giants that were there before. And it's not about it's not about forgetting that legacy. It's about building on it. And actually, I think what we're doing right now is just getting back to remembering who the fuck we are, which I think is really a really exciting time to be at Pearlfisher, especially to be kind of ECD of the London studio, for me and Matt together to try and bring our studios more closer, and have a lot of, we're doing a big creative share next week between us, and I do think there is I don't know whether it's the next sort of generation of kind of leadership coming in, where that the kind of reigniting and remembering the authenticity that made Pearlfisher great in the first place, rather than trying to be other people. Just why don't we just try and be what we're great at? And like you say, the diving for pearls and finding that idea and the excitement of it, and being able to come back and share it and share with the client. And it is a really exciting time. It's been not even 2 years I've been there. It's not been an easy 18 months, but I do think we're getting to the point now where this kind of rejuvenation feels like it's going in the right direction.
I agree. The current's been rough, but it's been really cool to embrace it. And I think, again, you go through them strong storms, right? And when it settles and the sun shines through, we're out here, Chloe.
I keep saying this to the guys in the studio as well. Like, this isn't just a Pearlfisher storm. This is an industry storm.
Yeah, you're right. Yep.
The waters out there in the whole industry are like unknown, and they're vast and they're rocky, and clients, even within clients, I think a lot of the clients are having restructures across the board. A lot of places are then going in-house design, building sort of in-house design rather than using agencies. A lot of the clients are then kind of shifting about. So there's a lot of turbulence in the whole industry. I mean, even the news at the minute with, on the grapevine of companies merging or companies getting swallowed up by other companies, and, to still be working for an independent, design agency, B Corp, in these kind of turbulent waters is something to kind of cling on to and be kind of proud of. But yeah, it's definitely, obviously it affects everybody, the sort of the current climate, the economic, downturn, everything just feels like, you say, wave after wave of stuff happening at the minute. But yeah, it is an industry thing, and it is, clients seem to want things quicker, for cheaper, and even better than they were before. So I think there's, it's trying to kind of navigate how can we make sure that we still do great work, but still keep the value of what we bring. And I do think that's something that, like, I'm certainly trying to kind of champion in the London studio, and I know that Matt is doing the same in New York. And this idea that, the idea has to be king, or queen, as it was. The ideas are the things that I've always thought this. Like, I think the way that someone thinks is way more important than if they're good at Photoshop or if they're good at Illustrator. It's like, I can teach everybody all that other stuff, but you can't really teach somebody how to think or how to come up with ideas or how to spot an idea or brainstorming or like that kind of, I think that skill is built into people. And you can tell from a very sort of young age, as people who are juniors, like, the ones that are going to be creative directors one day. I met one of my old creative directors on Friday, actually, and she was saying, well, you were always going to be BCD, you were always going to be reading. And I was like, was I? And she was like, yeah. She went, the way that you did things, your drive, the way that you're quite strategic, as well as designer, your ideas, your commerciality, as you started to kind of go up through the ranks. She went, that's really rare, and we could spot it from you in the early days. So I do think there is something within designers that it's that kind of the idea needs to be the thing that we hold true, and that like you say, diving for the pearl is the one thing that we try and always kind of do. And I know that you're a massive champion of that, Sheps. I'm sure, Michael, you're the same.
Cut from the same cloth.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And this is great, guys. Being the outsider here, this is so exciting for me to hear. So something that I'd love to find out, Chloe, is that you've worked at so many great, renowned agencies. What do you feel that Pearlfisher does differently in comparison to the other agencies that you worked at, and maybe something that you feel proud of to work at Pearlfisher?
What do I think? I think Pearlfisher, like I say, ideas are the things that are the thing that they've kind of built a reputation on. I also think the one thing that Pearlfisher does really good is almost doesn't follow people. I think, like, there's things looking back, like the Jamie stuff from years ago, or even it's the headaches, the help remedies. I remember at the time when everybody else was talking about a headache and how efficacious it needs to be because it needs to look like it works. They almost kind of flipped it on their head, and they were like, well, you take this pill if you have a headache, you take this pill if you have a stomachache. Like the consumer first thinking, and the way that you think about the consumer rather than almost the company and what they're trying to say. So I've seen that time and time again in Pearlfisher's work, and even on the more recent stuff, like the Bioma stuff, that they looked at the sort of the younger sort of tweens that were using their mum's products because they wanted to kind of emulate their mum putting the Olay and the fancy creams on their faces, and they then put it on their face, and it's not for their faces because it's got really bad acid and chemicals, which is great for older skin but not for young skin. So the fact that Pearlfisher was able to kind of recognise, actually, it needs to look like it's for these people. Why are we making it look like another Olay or another number 7 or Lancome or whatever? We almost need to create a shelf on, in the Boots supermarket or in Boots. And I think it's that thinking where you almost kind of, when everybody else is doing this thing, being able to come at it from a different angle or see it from the consumer point of view, or zag when everybody else is zigging, and then everybody else then starts zagging and almost kind of copies you. The amount of copies that I've seen of Pearlfisher work over the years, and the sort of the creating a category or creating a bit of a movement, that's the thing that really always excites me about Pearlfisher. And some of the projects that aren't out yet, so I can't actually show anybody, but a lot of the projects we've been working on recently are trying to do that again, and actually just kind of not just going, well, everybody else is doing this, so we need to do this to fit in. It's like, well, actually, why don't we stand out by doing this? So I think that's the one thing that's always been in the Pearlfisher DNA, and from the three founders from the beginning, they've always kind of stood with doing things their own way. That is obviously right for the project, right for the client, right for the consumer, and I think that's the exciting thing. Hopefully that we can start bringing back and working on the projects that we get over.
Yeah, for sure. I remember it like back in the day, like when we were fresh out of uni. Jesus, like the people who've come through Pearlfisher, like have set up their own agencies now.
Yeah.
Like it's created B&B Studio. I think Will did it with Midday Right. So many others as well, which are going out my head now. But yeah, the award-winning work, just one after another, hitter after hitter after hitter. And yeah, like I said at the start of this kind of like conversation on Pearlfisher, it's so exciting to be kind of like, getting back to that. And I'm excited to put out the work that we've been doing over the past couple of years too, Chloe. And I can't say too much about it, but I'm ready for it to hit them. Let's go.
No, bring it on. And I do think it's exciting, and I'm lucky to have been placed in this role to kind of take it on. And I do think the team, London team and New York team, there does feel like a real camaraderie as well. And I feel like everybody, we just had a Christmas party, and it just feels really good despite the shit that's going on in the world at the minute. It is really nice to have a kind of a space and some really talented people. And exactly what you're saying, we're all going in the same direction, so let's go.
Yeah, in years, whatever the next stage is, whatever happens when it happens, I'm sure you might get a bit itchy again at some point, maybe. What do you hope your kind of like, not legacy, but like your creative fingerprint on Pearlfisher will be, if or when or whatever happens in the future?
I probably think I would love my fingerprint to not just be on Pearlfisher. I think the industry as a whole, I feel like what I can bring to Pearlfisher, I think the galvanizing of a team, I think trying to do some work that we could just be really proud of, that we can put in front of clients that we're really kind of behind and sell it in. I think there's so many amazing ideas that never get through because we've not sold them in well enough. And I do think being able to kind of do that, prove that it's got worth, get the confidence, the client's got the confidence in you. But I think from me, like I say, it's always a long game with me. I'm definitely not itchy. There's like talking about outside your comfort zone. I'm still getting pushed at Pearlfisher. There's loads to do. I've got loads still, kind of up my sleeve on things that we can do together. But I do think the sort of the fingerprint for me is more on like, I want to leave this industry better than how I found it. And I think everything I do, and everything I've always done from a mentoring point of view, through things like Shift, through things like the Pentmore Pipeline, which we just launched a couple of months ago. Like, I want to be known as the person who actually made a difference. And the same way that I talk about the people that open doors for me, like, I think I've opened quite a lot of doors for people, and I want to keep doing that. I actually don't want there to be any doors that are closed. Like, that would be the dream, like being able to just be like, bust those doors open and allow so many different people into the industry that wouldn't have had that opportunity. That for me is not just my goal. I think it's how I got in, and I need to be paying it forward time and time again. And I absolutely love it. Like, as much as I think I can help the next generation through things like Shift and things like Creative Mentor Network that I've done, which goes into schools and actually goes to the proper pipeline to try and educate young kids that there is such a job as a designer. Like, if I had that back in primary school, that would be game changing. But I do think being able to, learn from those guys. The amount of stuff that I learn from the shifters, they keep me fresh. They keep me kind of seeing the world through their eyes. I think being, just because you've kind of got to a certain level, like I'm not here for sitting back and just letting somebody else take on. Like I'm really lucky at Pearlfisher. We've got an intern team that they are so like all over it already. We help on shift select, we take placements in, we go to universities. We do a lot, and the guys are amazing at being able to do that. So I think I would love to kind of my legacy to be, work. Love that. I love the fact that I've done loads of great work that I'm really, really proud of. But I think that's almost kind of allowed me loads of opportunities to kind of help the next generation and to help more women into leadership roles who doubt themselves. Like I'm the champion, I'm the cheerleader, I'm the one giving them advice, I'm the one trying to help people to kind of show them my wobbly route, and kind of say, if I can do it, you guys can do it, so come on. So I think that's a Pearlfisher thing, as well as an industry and a legacy thing. And obviously I'm not done yet. I am still so young and so far to go. So I'll keep doing it until even when I'm old and grey, I'll still be championing like you say, leave the place better than you found it would be a great thing for me to be able to do.
Oh, Chloe, yeah, sick, love it, great, yeah, everything, all of the above. Yeah, sick. Yeah, I always say to Michael, like when we get off these calls, people must think I've got something, you know what I mean, going on. I'm constantly like this and smiling and cheeks hurting and that. I think that's. I just want to. You spoke about a lot of leadership. And your approaches to that. Do you know what I mean? We've got like a couple of sections here. I want to do leadership and then your influence that you kind of just spoke about then.
Yeah.
Started to speak about. Just quickly on leadership. You know, as you've stepped into that role, and obviously you've kind of always been made for that role. How has your relationship with creativity changed? Are you still finding time to push personal projects, or are you is it more kind of like dialed into other people's creativity, if that makes sense?
Yeah, and I think it is different. The more senior you get, you almost, from a senior designer, you are like the one responsible for doing the work. You know, you're on the tools, you're doing the work. You're also helping, or I was anyway, helping the younger ones to kind of get there, and then you're presenting it to design directors, creative directors, blah blah blah. I think the jump to design director, it was a difficult one. It was a harder one, but I was really lucky that a few women had maybe 2 years before me had made that jump. So when I became a design director, they took me aside, and they were like, by the way, it's not about you anymore. Like it's about you got to try and get great work out of these people. So what you need to do is you need to stop thinking that you put a route in and that's going to save the day, because you need to almost take a bit of a step back and almost you're juggling more. So you're juggling way more projects. So you don't have time to kind of dive in and get too involved unless it's starting to go wrong. And I think that's when you need to be able to make the judgment to jump in and go, right, okay, we need a brainstorm. We need to start again. Like it's that directing the work. And I think that then the leap to creative director, you're not just looking after, say, a design director looks after a project. The creative director would look after the brand. So within the brands, there might be lots of different projects. So say, for example, when I worked on Tanqueray, I had a couple of design directors. Some of them would be working on, we did some innovation stuff. Then there was Tanqueray 10. And then there was like guidelines or brand world. So I was almost the creative director, and everybody kind of had their individual roles within that. And then they had the seniors and middleweights and juniors who were working on it. So you do get you are less on the tools. I'm not opening Illustrator and looking at, 50 different fonts to try and find the one. But I know the vision in my head, and I could kind of then go, well, actually, it probably wouldn't be that one. It would be this one, or what do we think? Or being able to, it's really hard to get great work out of people. And I think that's what I was talking about before, about you just know the people that just get it. And I love still to this day, got some ideas in my head. I'll just phone up or Zoom or go and sit with someone. And I've always got like a pen and a sketchbook, and I'll go, it's kind of like this. And I'll be drawing out, and then they'll say something and we'll just bounce off and bounce off. And then we'll get to something and it's like, okay, great. Okay, that's it. There we go. That's what we needed to do. So I think it's definitely different, the more senior you get. but I also do, I mean, I used to do loads of side projects, but I got to the point where all I was doing was working like 24/7. And
Yeah.
at the weekends, I would be working. Yeah, when I was a junior, I once started my own cake company that I did all the branding for, and then we got into like Selfridges and Harvey Nicks, and I used to go down to Selfridges the weekend and give free samples out with my branded apron. And I got to a point where I was like, I cannot do this anymore. I'm knackered. All I'm doing is all these extra projects. So I think more lately I've kind of channeled side hustles into the more of the mentoring side. But yeah, it is different. And I also don't think everybody is supposed to be a manager of people. And I do think it does take a certain type of person. Or, there's a whole range of different people that you could be. And I think everybody learns from people around them about what they think a good manager is or a bad manager. And I think the more senior you get, you've now got to worry about people's well-being and their mental health, as well as getting great work out of them. You're also thinking about all these other things, and are they challenged enough? And when I was in their shoes, I needed this and this, so it's what do they need that's going to help channel them into the best creative. So there's so much more you need to think about other than just the big idea, getting it down. So I think it is about wearing lots of different hats. It's about being able to juggle loads, to be able to prioritize in the right way. I don't always get it right. I feel like sometimes I'm too much involved in one thing, and then I need to kind of jump out a bit. There's certain things that I really want to do that me and one of the middleweights are working on a side project for Mike at the minute. And it's great. And I just want to, we're doing like this book thing, and it's great to do a bit of, layout and stuff, and then be able to throw little inspirational things his way, but also enough that he's, he feels free enough to kind of bring it to life the way that he wants. So it's a tricky balance. I mean, I hope I get it right, of not micromanaging, and allowing enough freedom of the guys that I kind of work with, enough freedom for them to kind of do their ideas, but also enough support, that I'm not just leaving them to it. Like, I'm always kind of there. We always do brainstorms. I'm always there to, obviously present their work still to me, and sometimes I'll present, sometimes I won't present. So I suppose it's up to, like, everybody's different. I think other ECDs are a lot more hands-on, and others are a lot more hands-off, and they're maybe not so close to the work. But an agency like Pearlfisher, it's a really good size that I can see most things that are going on. I know most of the things that are going through, thinking about who would be best for it, and also who needs a bit of a challenge. So there's so many different things of a role of an ECD, as well as the running of the business side. Having a seat at the table is really important to me, after being a creative director for so long, where the big conversations are happening in the big boardroom, and then as a creative director you get told this is what's happening, but now we need to galvanize the team to make it happen. I wanted to have a seat at the table. I didn't want to just be told what we were doing. I wanted to have a bit of an influence on the way we do things and the way things happen. So yeah, there's just a lot. There's a lot going on, but I still do love, getting involved in the work, and making sure that the work is as best as it can be, and whether that's an idea or a thought or have we thought about this, to kind of guide it, as well as inspiration. I'm always sending the guys random stuff that I've seen, whether it's a photo that I've seen or just something that I was thinking, actually that would be great reference for this. So yeah, I think you could be as involved or as not involved as you want. I think I tend to kind of try and balance it depending on where I'm needed.
Yeah.
But it definitely is a big jump as you go up. As you go up through the kind of levels, you need to kind of switch your mindset from being the one who is, cutting things out or being able to kind of make it, to actually being able to direct it and be able to get the best out of that person, and direct it in a way that, you've got your vision, but also, like, I love it when I get surprised. Like, the worst thing is when you go to a review and you've already had all the ideas. Like, well, that's what I would have done. So what you surprise me with something else, like you're just doing what you think I want to see. Go and do something random, and that'll probably be the one. So I think it's being able to not, I don't know, not be drinking your own Kool-Aid, is that what they say? Where you, like, I don't think I've got all the ideas. Like, I think I've got loads of great ideas. I also think I've got loads of shit ideas. And sometimes it's like, let's get all the shit ones out, and then we can get onto the good stuff. So I think that's what I try and do as a leader. I try and create an environment that people can thrive in, that people are challenged in, but also feel supported enough. Like, I'm never going to leave anybody in the lurch. Like, if we're doing a late night, like, I'm there. Like, I'm not leaving people behind. Like, if there needs to be something done, I'll do it. It's so much quicker just having us all there to then just go, yep, da 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 da, right, I'll build the deck, you do this, da da da. And I just and maybe that's my bad, and I should do what all the when I was a junior, people just used to go and then they would come in. I mean, I used to work till like 5 a.m. sometimes, and then it would be like, if you'd done stuff and it was wrong, it was then you'd go home, you'd have a quick shower, maybe an hour's sleep, and come back and you have to redo it. So I definitely don't want to be that person. I want to be with everybody in the trenches. But I also want to give them enough space that they can go off and do their own ideas, make their own mistakes, and come back with really cool, exciting creative that I can have an idea of how we can present it a bit differently, or how do we make sure we sell it in. So yeah, that's what I try to do. I think, you've got to learn people's working skills and their processes when you join somewhere new. But I feel like I've got most of the Pearlfisher guys down now, and I feel like we're into a kind of good rhythm of it. And they know that I'm always there if they need anything, or if anybody's worried about anything. And sometimes even just having a quick chat and a bit of like a sketch is all we need to go from absolute panic to, oh, actually, yeah, we're all right, we're on track. So yeah, it definitely is a balance, but I think I've got I've been a creative director. It's about 30, so about 9 years at ECD, for about 4 now.
Nice.
So yeah, I think you just use experience, and I don't think I'm perfect. I'm sure there's other things to learn, which I kind of like. Like, you're always learning. I want to always be learning, and I always want to be trying to like improve and think of new ways to do things. And as the industry completely changes with all things AI, I'm still learning. We're still getting our kind of feet with things, and it's another amazing challenge for us to kind of face. And that's where that growth and that excitement, and not feeling itchy, and actually just feeling like really like enthused by what I'm doing every day is a thing that just keeps me going.
Amazing. Awesome. Love it, Chloe. I think I love your emotional intelligence, and you know that each person's different, and each person, almost needs a bit of a different kind of push sometimes. Like, I like being told exactly how it is. Do you know what I mean? I like being told what I did not bad, for lack of a better word, what I did bad over what I did good, because I think there's more I can take from the bad and the good sometimes. But other people need a bit of a different approach, and I think understanding that from a top-down perspective is super important to be a solid leader. And the more leaders that I speak to, like you just mentioned, then you allow. People get hired to do what they do, so why would you hire them to tell them what you do? Do you know what I mean? Like, allow them the freedom and the trust to shine.
Yeah. And I always try and lead from the front. It's like, I want to be leading. I want to be walking here. This is where I'm going, and I want to trust that I've got a team behind me. I don't want to be at the back of everybody.
All that, exactly. Yeah.
I don't want to be at the back whipping everybody, saying we're going this way. It's like, I'm going here. This is what we stand for. This is this is where we're going, and I have the trust that they're there behind me, and I know they will be. And I think that's always, whether that's a slightly different approach to some of the leaders that I've had in the past. I think, maybe it was a bit more of a dictatorship back in the day, where you would just do what the creative director or chief creative or whoever was the head, you kind of just do what they wanted. Whereas now I try and, I love it when somebody comes with a random piece of reference, or something that just sparks something off in me, going, God, I didn't think about that, but actually that would be really good, and we could do this. And then you almost kind of accept and build on what people have kind of said. So for me, it's about leading from the front and not having to look back all the time and check everybody's with you. I think the confidence of doing that and showing up, when we were kind of returning to work, or when we were coming into the new place at Pearlfisher, and I was there, I was doing the seating plan, I was there making sure that the studio looked how we wanted it to look, making sure that I was there every day for the first couple of weeks to make sure that people, people who wanted to be in knew that I was there. I think otherwise, if I wasn't really around, I don't know, I felt like I had to kind of, again, I'm usually one of the first ones in, because I want to, there's a few of us who are always in about 8:30. I want to be there. I don't want to be traipsing in late and, I don't have to because I'm ECD. It's like, no, I'll be there at 8:30. I'm usually the last one to leave. and not in a way that like presenteeism and that I feel like I need to be in the studio, but in a way that the days that we are in, like I'm in, and people know that if they've got something they want to chat about, they come in early, they have a chat with me. And even if I am leaving when some people are still working, I'll always sort of give them a cut off. I'm like, right, I've got plans tonight, but you've got half an hour more, and then we'll fresh tomorrow. I don't really like being the one to just, I don't know, leave everybody behind and go, here are all ideas, I'll see you in 8 hours. But again, and that's no shade on anybody that does, like, that's their style and they think that gets the best out of them. Like you say, everybody's different, there's no right ways, but I feel like it kind of works for me and for my team so far anyway in my career. So I'll keep doing it until someone tells me different.
Oh, Chloé, this was amazing. Thank you so much. I think that's so insightful for anyone to hear from not even a student in design, for someone trying to figure out if design's the right thing for them to do. Do you know what I mean? It's right to the other end of the spectrum for people who are leading this kind of industry as well. Thank you so much for your honesty. We want to, we've kept you for an hour and a half now, so conscious of, not taking too much of your Sunday. We really appreciate your time.
Listen, I could chat all day.
We could too, do you know what I mean? Trust me. You've done this before. The way we navigated through our flow was really nice. Right, so the last question, the famous question on this podcast we want to leave you with is, what does your mum think? Or what does your ma think? What do you call your ma in Scotland?
I usually just call my wee mum because she's tiny.
Right. What does your wee mum think?
What does your wee mum think?
My wee mum is, she's a wee diamond. Like, she's literally tiny. I think she's about 5'2". She's tiny, and I'm quite tall, and my brother's really tall, and she's just this tiny little force. My mum, I don't think she 100% knows what I do. I feel like she kind of gets it. I think when I worked on Smirnoff and she could buy the Smirnoff in the local Tesco, and she could say to my aunties and uncles, "Oh, Chloe did this." That's when it became a bit more real. I think some of the other stuff I worked on, maybe it was the Fortnum stuff, it's in London, so she's got less of a connection with it. My mum's proud of me, whatever I do. I feel like she's proud of all of us. She's the sort of champion without really being a champion. I think probably the same way I kind of support but let the guys do, kind of come to me with stuff. She's never held me back. She's never I would say she's never helped me from a career point of view, but I think she's always kept me grounded. She's still in Fife. She doesn't really understand what I do, or even the fact that that I'm in ECD, and the percentage of female ECDs is nothing. I think the stats is 16% of women are creative directors. I don't even know what the stat is for ECDs. I think it's about 4%. So I don't think she really understands that the role that I'm in is quite rare for a female to be in. Never mind a wee lassie for Fife to be in this role. But I also think it probably wouldn't even. It wouldn't impress her, because she would be like, well, of course Chloe's going to do that. I don't think she would expect anything less of me. Like, she always knew I had my own mind, and always kind of, knew that I probably wasn't going to stay in Scotland forever. And I think she's proud of me, whatever I do, but I think she definitely will 100% be sending this podcast out to everybody, all her pals and all my...
Wait. What's your mother's name? What's your mother's name, Chloé?
She's called Anne.
Anne. Hi, Anne, if you're listening. Big up, Anne. Oh, we love that.
She is a real, she's a real diamond, and I think she'll definitely be like, oh, you got me, give me a shout out with that.
Big up, Anne. Love it.
Big up, Anne Thames. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, listen, that brings it beautifully to an end, Chloé. Again, when I first sat down with you, I was really excited to get to know you more. Do you know what I mean? So this was a way for me to just have you for an hour and a half, uninterrupted by any Pearlfisher work stuff, and just really connect with you. Do you know what I mean? So this has been great, and to get to know you like this, and hopefully now to work on some projects with you and break some stuff in the best way possible the next couple of years or whatnot. Let's
No,
go.
thank you so much, and so nice to meet you, Michael. I obviously had never met you before. I'd met Sheps very briefly, but I'm really impressed with what you guys are doing. And I saw a few names coming up, and when you asked me, I was a bit hesitant to begin with. Obviously thinking, what have I got to say of any importance? But yeah, no, I think like you say, just sometimes just being you is enough. And actually, I think that's all I can be. And I really appreciate the sort of the platform and being able to get another Scottish voice out there for people to kind
represent.
of know that there is that there is an industry out there called design, and you can, wherever you're from, wherever your background, you can kind of break into it. And yeah, we're all proof of that. So yeah, no, it's been ace. Thanks, guys.